Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, the word foolish appears in today's readings. In the first reading, St. Paul speaks of the foolishness of the message that he preaches, the message that is regarded by many in their wisdom as foolishness. And Paul is not ashamed to confess that he preaches the wisdom of God, a wisdom that is considered by many as foolish. For while the Jews demand miracles and Greeks look for wisdom, there he is preaching Christ crucified. To the Jews, this is an obstacle they cannot get over. To the pagans, it is utter foolishness or madness. But to those who have been called, whether they are Jews or Greeks, Christ is the power and the wisdom of God. For God's wisdom, His foolishness is wiser than human wisdom. God's weakness is stronger than human strength. My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, today we celebrate the feast of St. Augustine. Augustine was one of those who at one time considered Christianity as a foolish religion. He is that young man who gives himself to so many vices. At the age of 19, Augustine had fallen in love with a woman who bore him a child. And he continued to live a life of vice. He is the same Augustine who, when he is considering to be a Christian, one of the things he says is that the Christian ideal he cannot live up to. And hence he could pray, "Save me, God, but not now." My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, we heard from yesterday's prayers of St. Monica how in the end Augustine gets converted. He is that Augustine who is born of a very pious mother and a pagan father, and yet a pagan father from a noble family who could afford to send his son to one of the best schools in Carthage. It was in Carthage that Augustine excelled in rhetoric and philosophy, and he was invited to be a professor in Milan. When in Milan, Augustine seriously considers what to do with his life. In the end, he gives his life to God. And the moment he gave his life to God, his conversion touched the core of his being. He was a complete changed man. A story is told by Augustine that when he went back to the city where people knew him, and they knew him in relation to his vices, they invited him, "Come, let's do that which we used to do." And Augustine says to them, "I am no longer the Augustine that you knew." This is the same Augustine who becomes a priest and a bishop. And he uses his wisdom to write. And one of his best writings that I rarely recommend people to read books, but if people have an opportunity, they should not die without reading the Confessions of Augustine. It's his autobiography where he tells his story. Reflecting on the love of God and the beauty of knowing God, Augustine writes in Book 10 of his autobiography, "Too late have I loved you, O beauty ancient yet ever new. Too late have I loved you, and behold, you were within me, but I was outside, searching for you there, plunging, deformed amid those fair forms which you had made. You were with me, but I was not with you. Things held me far away from you, which unless they were in you, did not exist at all. You called and shouted, and burst my deafness. You gleamed and shone upon me, and chased away my blindness. You breathed fragrant odors on me, and I held back my breath. But now I pant for you. I tasted, and now I hunger and thirst for you. You touched me, and now I yearn for your peace. That's a summary, dear brothers and sisters, of knowing God. The moment we get a glimpse of who God is, everything else fades away. I think Augustine is a typical example to all of us, that there is none of us who can be written off redemption. No saint is without a past, and no sinner is without a future.